Today, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite resources as a foster parent, and that is books. I'm going to share added bonuses at the end as well as my final thoughts towards the end of this video. So get ready for 5 of my favorite nonfiction book suggestions. Let's get started. My top 5 nonfiction book suggestions. Let's get started. But first, why books? Well, as a new foster parent, it can feel sometimes overwhelming. We hear words like reactive attachment disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, all these different labels on these kids and all these different words and classifications. And to be honest, it can feel like we just entered a university, an elite university, and we are maybe not even graduated from high school. And it is overwhelming because we don't even know really what all these terms mean. And so I personally have found the best way to learn about foster care through books. The second reason we're talking about books today is the truth is foster parenting, whether you've done it 20 years or whether you're just getting started, it can feel sometimes a little lonely. And if you haven't watched what it's really like to be a foster parent, I will link that video below, so make sure to watch it. The third reason we're talking about books today is because the truth is a lot of times these foster kids, they're so unique. You may have the same age child and the same situation, maybe even a child with the same diagnosis. However, the behaviors and the situation can be so unique to that specific child as well as that child in their environment. As far as school goes or in your home, it may look completely different. So it's hard to gauge these children. And books, they can take you away into a world where you have understanding and you can feel known and feel seen and know that you are not alone. And the fourth reason we're talking about books today is because sometimes when the stress of becoming a foster parent just gets so high or you just feel overwhelmed, it can feel so good to escape in a book, especially these books that I'm going to talk about today because we're talking about nonfiction and these specifically are all memoirs. And so it can feel really healing to jump inside another person's story, to take a nap time or an early morning, just to sit down with a good book and read it and to escape and to feel refreshed and restored when you are done with that book. So here is my top 5 nonfiction book selections. And first, before I share, I just wanted to let you know that these books, no one solicited me or contacted me to share a review on these books. I'm sharing with you from my own library, my own book selection. Books that I've read have been incredibly impacted by, and there are so many to choose from. Honestly, it was so hard to pick just 5 because I just have shelves and shelves of books about foster care and adoption in particular. However, these were the ones that really stuck out to me today, and so these are the ones that I'm going to be talking about with you. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about today is called Rich in Love: When God Redeems Messy People. This book is by Irene and Domingo Garcia, and my husband and I were able to have a chance to meet with them one-on-one at the Refresh conference in Seattle, Washington area. It's an incredible conference that we've been to and have been impacted by in the past. And this particular day, it was crazy because my husband had hurt his leg. We missed the whole entire conference. However, we felt so prompted to go to this particular session. And so we did, and we were impacted by their story. They were able to share personally about their testimony, about how God redeemed them, even in their messiest place. God chose them and selected them and then used them to be foster parents. Irene and Domingo Garcia are also friends with Francis Chan and his wife. And if you don't know who they are, maybe I'll add them in the description below because they have a powerful ministry and testimony. I can attest firsthand that this couple is one of the most honest and just humble people that I've ever met. I love Irene because as she shared, she didn't share we did this and we did this and we had this much impact. What she shared was that she so often in the morning would get on her knees and she would seek God, and God would give her a way and a direction through the foster care system and towards the adoption of the kids that were in her care. The book starts a little non-traditionally. It starts with Domingo's struggle and Irene's struggle and their relationship with one another. And when I started reading this book, honestly, I thought there is no way that they are going to make any kind of impact because of the way that their relationship started, the way that their story started. But then I looked at myself and I realized that God does use messy people in the most incredible ways. And it just made me want to cheer them on towards the end of the book and really give glory to God. I think that was the thing that impacted me most about this book, was that you could see that it was God moving in their lives. He was the one changing hearts, and he was the one empowering them to impact youth in their care and in their community. I love also that they sought out the most least likely children to be taken into the foster care system. I thought that was brave and admirable, and how God used their brokenness and their messy stories to impact other children in mighty and incredible ways. What this book taught me most was that our past does not disqualify us from becoming foster parents. God can use anyone. He can use you and he can use me. And he is not through with us yet. That regardless of what we've been through, we still can be used for the glory of God and the good of his people here on this earth. This second book that I'm going to share with you today is called Small Town, Big Miracle: How Love Came to the Least of These. This book was by D.C. Martin. He is a Baptist minister, and it was also highlighted on Focus on the Family. Small Town, Big Miracle is about a small town pastor who is able to persuade his congregation to adopt 72 children within the system. Martin's story drew attention from Oprah Winfrey, Reader's Digest, James Dobson, Rick Warren. I mean, this is a huge story because of the impact that a community, regardless of what they have or what they didn't have, sought the heart of God to go after the orphans that were around them and to do something about the poverty and the loss that they saw in their own community. This story was written in such a way that it had a bent of really grace and humility and God's heart for these kids. Sometimes when we read books on foster care, it can kind of have this undertone of condemnation or, this weightiness, or maybe even this depressive innuendos or whatever about foster care. But this book really was filled with the grace of God. It was beautiful. It's something that I've given out to people because of the impact that it personally has had on me. And what this book teaches, Small Town, Big Miracle, is that poverty is no excuse for apathy. We all can do something. We all can impact foster kids and orphan care in our communities, regardless of what we have or what we don't have. The third book I'm going to highlight today is called Castaway Kid: One Man's Search for Hope and for Home. This book is by R.B. Mitchell, and it also was highlighted with Focus on the Family and was recommended by them as something to read for foster adopted parents or anyone curious about orphan care in their communities. So this book isn't quite as easy of a read, but however, as a foster parent, I would recommend that every foster parent really read this book. And what makes it unique is that it's written from the perspective of the foster child. And so I really loved reading this because it really took me into the heart of kids that are in care. It showed me kind of the duality of children that are in care. They have this love for the birth family, but they also have this love and this desire for home and for stability and for just a regular, normal life. And so it really showed that tug of war that kids in foster care go through. This book is captivating, but it's also really, really heartbreaking. This boy, I don't want to give away the punchline, but this boy has a continued struggle really to find himself, who he is, his worth. Is he loved? Is he valued? Where is home when you're a foster child? That's a great question that this book continually asks over and over. Where is home? And it will help you to dive deeper into the heart of foster children. And beware, it might also make you want to jump out and foster teens. So what does this book teach us? It really teaches that all kids have a deep longing and a yearning for a sense of belonging. They long to be loved, to be accepted regardless of what they do, and for a place that's called home. The fourth book I'm going to share with you is called Wait No More: One Family's Amazing Adoption Journey. This also was a focus on the family book. I didn't try to pick the books that focus on the family highlighted. It just kind of happened that way. I'm not being sponsored by Focus on the Family. I just really enjoyed these books. I really, again, just thought they took you into the heart of God. There was so much truth about foster kids, as well as this overtone of grace and of God's love for these kids that I don't always read in a lot of foster care books. This memoir was by Kelly and John Rosati, who ended up adopting numerous foster kids through the system in Hawaii. And what is so interesting is that Kelly actually was a lawyer. So she didn't jump out to be a foster parent. She had a career and, she had an education. However, God led her on this journey to adopt these kids. And it's really quite an incredible story. What I love about this book is that it doesn't just share about adoption. What it does is it kind of opens your eyes into the legal system, into the roadblocks or the barriers maybe of getting kids to be safe, of, maybe paperwork or what's needed to fight for these kids and to get these kids safe and secure into situations to where they can thrive and adapt and be happy. This book also shares about the heartbreak, about some horrific things that these kids face. But again, it's not doom and gloom and sad or depressing. It makes you come away filled with joy and anticipation and a desire to go out and do the same thing, impact kids, get involved in the legal system and foster care, as well as bring change to the community that you're in. So this book personally taught me that love, it requires action. It doesn't require us just to feel good or go with the flow or to do what's easiest. It requires sometimes really hard action, sometimes legal action to advocate for these kids and to be a voice to them. It may require us to get involved in what the laws are in our state or where we live to be able to best advocate for the children that are in our care and to see the needs and the situations around us, and then to do anything possible in our might to be a voice for the voiceless. The fifth and final book I'm going to share with you today is called The Family That Nobody Wanted by Helen Doss. I believe I'm saying that right. She really did groundbreaking work in way of adoption, especially transracial adoption. I don't know about you, but we have a very transracial family. We have Hispanic and Samoan and African American and Caucasian, and we just have a very, very transracial family. And so it was so interesting to read this story, to see how things were decades ago, even here in the states where we live. This book gives you insight into how limited people's thinking were. They thought that love, it really was determined by the color of someone's skin. And there was a certain group of people that could not be adopted simply because their skin was darker or it looked different than someone else's. And Helen Doss, she fought for her kids. She was a voice and she set a precedent really for all of us. According to what adoption looks like today, now we see multiracial families all over the internet, all over the media, even in Hollywood. And a lot of that, I believe, is due to this woman and the impact that she had on the community around her and the voice that she was willing to have to fight for kids to be able to have homes regardless of the color of their skin. This book really was a wake-up call that there are certain kids that can slip through the cracks in foster care. That can be due to the color of their skin, or maybe a disability, or maybe they're in a sibling group, or maybe just their gender. If they're a boy, boys tend to be adopted a lot less likely, or to be maintained placements a lot less likely. And so this was an eye-opener, and it was really heartbreaking that people would be so narrow-minded to judge that a family all has to look the same exact color. This book teaches something that you probably already know, that love isn't determined by the color of someone's skin, that all children, regardless of the color, regardless of whether they're a boy or a girl or their past, they deserve and they belong in families. So the bonus that I have for you, her name is Cathy Glass. This is a woman that's been a foster parent for years and years, and she has written so many books, and I'll link them for you below. They are about kids that have been in her care. One of them is about a girl that she's adopted. It shares the child's story so in-depthly. It feels like as you open the pages of this book, like you've stepped inside this woman's home. She's just very honest. She's really pays attention to detail. She talks about lessons like far as paperwork or documenting or advocating or, behavior. She talks about these things, but not in a really strict and need to, have to way. She just shares her own story in a very candid and open way that we can learn from. Some of the stories that she writes, they're extremely heartbreaking. They were hard. Some of them, honestly, there's one that I haven't been able to make my way through. She does share the story of the children that are in her care and talks about their history. She doesn't use their actual names, but she gives you the details inside the lives of these children. And it is something worth reading if you are or want to be a foster parent. These are my final thoughts. I just want to encourage you, if you're a foster parent or have been or want to be a foster parent, open up a book. I love a book because it doesn't judge you. It doesn't criticize you, tell you what to do. It doesn't try to command answers or give you rules or regulations. It simply lets you open the pages and let you see into someone else's life to be able to understand and fully grasp what it really is to be a foster parent. Sometimes this journey as a foster parent, it is so hard to grasp, and it can be so different from year to year or foster parent to foster parent. And so opening up books and really reading, especially from other foster parents, will impact you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I just want to encourage you to subscribe below for more videos about foster care books as well as other things foster care. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, go out, live bold, and be brave.